of those ASMR sound files. But it is the Your Story Matters podcast, and I'm happy to introduce the brand new series that we've started entitled Micro Matters. So be sure, if you haven't checked them out yet, you will if you keep on listening, because these are little thoughts that I put together throughout the week to help you in your recovery from trauma and your healing towards greatness. Also for 2025, we have brand new guests appearing on the Your Story Matters podcast. So definitely hit the subscribe button so you'll get all the latest episodes when they drop. Again, thanks for joining us. And now enjoy today's episode. Hey friends, thanks again for joining me here for another episode of Micro Matters. I'm Branon Dempsey of Your Story Matters, and appreciate you guys following and downloading this podcast. I do ask you, as we put out more content, please subscribe to this podcast wherever that you're listening to, and also follow us on our socials, Your Story Matters, because I put these conversations and these little micro podcasts together to serve as a source of encouragement and hope for you in your recovery from trauma and your healing from it, because it matters. Your story matters. So this week I talked about a new term that may not be new to others that may hear it, but it was to me, and I did some research on it, and it's called affection flooding. Someone had asked a question over Threads this past week about love bombing, and how is that used in a setting where one person pretty much stirs it up among the group, and to develop a loyal following of that group so that the outsider, who apparently is causing the problem, is the one that's actually the scapegoat. And the narcissistic person uses this group to oust that outsider, right? You got me? So the question was, what do you call that? And so I did a lot of thinking about it and some research. And I thought to myself, well, it's beyond love bombing, because it's not individual to individual. Love bombing is the case where a narcissist or an enabler would use manipulative emotions and words and thoughts to coerce the person to believe that they're unworthy. And basically, by doing that, you would give them false hope and like, hey, I love this about you, and I love that, and man, you're so great, and they shower you with all this kind of encouragement and affection, but you know deep down it's a lie, okay? And that's why I say that it's a negative, because at the very end of it, then they start using their ploys against you when you disagree with them, and then they're like, well, but haven't I showed you all the love and acceptance that you wanted? And see, that's where they hook you, right? So love bombing, that's how it works, from individual to individual. And it can happen also in a small group. But I thought about that more and more, and I thought, well, but when a narcissist or an abuser floods, right, they can flood out to people. And a flood is where it affects more than just one person. It affects, like, let's say how a flood happens. Like if you've ever been in a hurricane or torrential rain, the flood goes everywhere, right? Well, the same thing with a very toxic person. Their words, their negativity and toxicity spreads like a flood. So they can do the same thing by flooding affection to people and coercing a group all at one time. It's very like crafty if you think about it. You know, you see this often with very group settings. That could be your workplace, it could be school, it could be a church, it could be these uncanny places that you wouldn't think would happen, and then you're kind of sitting there among the group while the leader or the toxic person is love bombing and their affection flooding, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, yeah, well, things are really not that great, right? I mean, why is this person publicly amassing this positivity when you know deep down inside that that person, where that source where it's coming from, is not right? There's something, and your gut's telling you that. That's your intuition. So here's the deal. Whether it's love bombing, right, or affection flooding, it's about manipulation. it works in its best way of it being charming, like a mask, right? So affection flooding, love bombing, who's ever doing it, they can do it with a wide smile. They speak in warm tones. This is what it looks like, right? It feels like trust. You feel like they're on your side, like they're making you part of the team. But beneath the surface, there's something darker that's at work. So affection flooding, that's how it goes beyond love bombing, because it's not about overwhelming one person with flattery or charm. It's a tactic aimed at controlling an entire group. So toxic narcissists use this strategy to create an environment where their power is protected. And that's ultimately the goal. They want to form these allies within their group because they feel more protected by the group, right? And if an outsider were to say anything wrong about the toxic leader, well, then the group does their job by protecting them, right? See how that works? So as the toxic person can flood individuals with praise, false loyalty, surface level connection, it may feel genuine at the moment until it doesn't. So how does this work? Well, affection flooding, let's just call it out. It's not love, okay? It's about control. And here's why. They use flattery as a weapon. Narcissists shower individuals with compliments. They praise skills, achievements, or personalities. Hey, you're so good at this. And it's a way where it almost feels intoxicating to the person who's receiving it. But the goal of the narcissist is never about connecting with you. It's about forming dependency. Wow, that's a different switch. So it's not about connecting with you on a heart level. They may make you feel that way, but what they're really doing is they're trying to, yes, wrap you around their proverbial finger. So here's the second thing about affection flooding is that it's charm offensive. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it's when the leader presents themselves as the ideal person, right? They're never wrong. They're the person who, quote unquote, gets you, right? And it almost seems to be so too true. But spoiler alert, it's not. So here's the third one, false reality. False reality is cascaded by the narcissist to create an illusion, right? The illusion of loyalty. They act as if they always have your back, but the loyalty is transactional, right? I've done this for you, therefore you do this for me kind of attitude. And that loyalty that you first thought was yours, it begins to disappear when you stop serving their agenda. Fourth thing, superficial bonding. This is really good. This is when they encourage the group bonding through shared moments or like inside jokes, or you got to be part of the club kind of thing. Yeah, right. Okay. And these connections feel real at the moment, but they lack depth. I mean, you can feel it in the room, right? Where they're saying these things like, you must be part of the group. Man, like you come back from the weekend or whatever it is, and the leader's like, yeah, but we had all this fun. And you're kind of like, well, wait a minute, I wasn't invited. Like, and then that makes they're doing these ploys to make you, to grip you and to pull you in, where you must be part of what we're doing. Because after all, if you're not, then you're the outsider. All that is designed to build a false sense of trust. And that's the hidden goal. Because affection flooding serves as one single purpose, and that's power. So by winning over people, the narcissist creates a supportive group dynamic. This is where it works. They position themselves perfectly to be indispensable, and that allows them to abuse their power while others excuse or defend their behavior. Oh my gosh. We see this in politics all the time, right? I'm not going to name names. But over time, the group becomes a shield, like I was saying earlier. The narcissist uses this environment and this group to exploit, manipulate, and silent dissent through their cronies, right? And those who speak up are isolated or labeled as disloyal or the outsider. Now, this is what I've gone through in my personal abuse, where the abusers were using the group for their deceptive and harmful means. So we, as survivors, we recognize these things that happen. But it's important that in the moment we continue to understand these dynamics, because a lot of times they're so deceptive, because that's how good narcissists are, right? So even though when it's hard to spot, let's say, affection flooding, sometimes it's difficult to label it when it's happening. But ask yourself these questions. Does this charm feel comforting to me? Does the praise that I'm getting, is it validating me in some way? But what you're really experiencing are the red flags. So then ask yourself these questions when it happens. Does this affection feel excessive? Is it sudden? Is it impromptu? Secondly, is loyalty now expected, right? After they've been flooding me with this affection. But when I give them loyalty, do they give it back to me? Is it reciprocated? Or here's the third thing. Are my boundaries ignored or dismissed? I mean, they're doing a great job flooding me with all this love, but are they still respecting me? Or is it really turning into about them? And then here's another one. Do they pit people against each other within this group so that they can maintain control? That's a scary one, okay? So trust your instincts, because if something feels off, it probably is. So how do we break free from the affection flooding? Well, awareness is the first step of breaking free from this type of behavior from the narcissist. And once you see the pattern, you can choose to step away. There really is a choice. You really can live outside of their club. It really can happen. So what do? Set boundaries. Politely, but firmly enforce your limits. Because narcissists struggle to control people who won't play along, who won't play their game. Secondly, find support. Seek out trusted friends on the outside and hey, is this really right? I see this happening, but is this real? Also, if it's becoming destructive to you, find a professional therapist who can help walk you through, because like me, I've been through years of this style of abuse within my own family, of my parents and from my abusers. So I wanted to understand why this was happening, all these manipulation tactics, right? Okay, thirdly, protect your peace. Let go of the guilt for prioritizing your mental and emotional well-being. In other words, stop saying to yourself, well, am I being selfish? Is this going to hurt that narcissist or abuser? Am I somehow betraying them? Well, the thing is, you're already betraying them. If they're trying to coerce you under their control, you're already a threat, okay? So by, and yes, I will say, by you seeking help, it will be a threat to them, but who's it going to benefit, them or you? All right? Here's a final thought. Affection flooding. Remember, it's not love. It's manipulation dressed up as control, as connection. True relationships are the ones that respect your boundaries and they honor your individuality. So don't ask for blind loyalty. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Affection flooding, versus true love. True love does not, and true acceptance does not accept blind loyalty or unconditional admiration. Choose peace, choose authenticity, choose relationships where love isn't a tactic, it's a truth. Friends, thanks again for following me here. That's it for our episode of Micro Matters. I appreciate you joining me. Remember, hit the subscribe button to get all the latest fresh downloads when they appear. And I thank you for being here with me. And remember, your story matters. See you back here next time.